Well, Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn joins us now. Senator, what do you think about GoFundMe pulling the plug on donations for the Freedom Convoy?
It's so interesting to me that they have done this. And you know, John, if you use their actions and say that is their logic, and they're saying, well, you can't have this on our site because it causes disruption. Well, then you would think they would be pulling down every BLM organization or affiliated organization, but that is not what is happening. And we know that GoFundMe corporately gave to BLM when those protests were taking place, and the violence was carried out in cities. It caused deaths. It caused, I think, about $500 million worth of destruction in these cities. So they are very subjective. And I will say this, it is why we need some non-discrimination language that will be in the governance and the legislation we're going to pass dealing with these big tech companies.
Yeah, listen to what Jonathan Turley, the eminent law professor, has to say about GoFundMe and the kind of power it seems to be exercising here. Here's John Turley.
And this is the danger that many of us in the free speech community have been voicing for years. These social media companies like GoFundMe, have created an alternative to a state media. You know, these are companies that are effectively targeting critics of governments. Companies now control a huge amount of political dialogue around the world.
What do you say to the senator's points?
Yes, and Professor Turley he's correct about that. They are very subjective in what they monitor, what they censor, how they carry this out. And the actions they've taken against the Freedom Convoy are very discriminatory. They disagree with them, so therefore they were going to cut them off, which they did, and then they were going to take all that $9 million and use it for charities or groups or something, people that were on their GoFundMe site. Now, fortunately, they're giving that money back, and the money is going to the Freedom Convoy through other avenues. But John, this is why we have to go in and we have to deal with these big tech companies, these social media platforms, and the way they are conducting themselves in the virtual space.
Right. I want to get to that in a minute because I know you have written a letter about that. But regarding specifically BLM and the Seattle CHOP occupation back in the summer of 2020, GoFundMe had no problem supporting those, operations. There were murders in the CHOP zone in Seattle. There were, lootings, arson, all kinds of problems resulting from the BLM protests all across the country that same summer. And GoFundMe just blinked, didn't even blink.
Well, you're right about that, and that's why I say if you were to take the actions that they're taking and use that as their logic, then what you would do is see them shutting down every BLM affiliated group or organization. But that's not what they're doing, so it is very subjective, it is discriminatory, and it has to be put to a stop.
You have done something rare, and that is put a bipartisan coalition together to try to crack down on some of these, big tech companies, as well as, Apple specifically, because of its inability to let people have access to its iOS operating system.
That's correct. And as you know, I've worked on this big tech governance issue for about a decade now. And finally, we are seeing some good progress. Senator Blumenthal and I have the Open App Market Bill, which would remove Apple and Google as the gatekeeper on apps. It would free up the app marketplace and allow people to download apps directly from the innovator or developer of those apps. And it also would remove Apple and Google as the payment system required to to purchase these apps. So we're making great progress. The bill came out of Judiciary Committee last week. We're still working with our colleagues on a bipartisan basis on this bill, and we look forward to having it to the floor of the Senate very soon.
But for instance, you say that Apple acts as a gatekeeper and sort of helps, if you will, the Communist Chinese Party stifle dissent.
Well, that is correct. And of course, much of that discussion has centered around the Olympics, because there is an app you have to download on your burner phone, since you can't take your own phone, and it is available through the Apple App Store. And this is one of the reasons, as I said earlier, we need these non-discrimination policies. But the important thing to realize with this, what Apple is doing, is with this app that you have to download for the Olympics. If you're going to the Olympics, if you're an athlete, if you participate, then the Chinese Communist Party has access, and they probably say they have ownership of that data. They can surveil you, they can track you. If you download that digital yuan, then they are in your wallet. They know who you're communicating with. They are able to surveil and audit those conversations. So we're quite concerned about the security and safety of those Olympians while they are there. And also, John, let me add, for developers and innovators that want to market their app on the App Store, Apple is taking 30% of that cost. So if we can pass our bill, it is going to be security and protections for consumers. It also is going to lower the cost of the app.
Senator Marsha Blackburn, we'll continue to watch that legislation. Thank you.
Got it.